there's simple stuff like pistachio blondies with the summer pudding jam swirled through them, or a really good ginger cookie sandwiched with raspberry lambic jam. And then there's more complicated stuff like Black Forest whippets and like eau de vie meringue rolls and stuff like that.
Welcome to the Senka Set podcast. I'm your host, Amy Watson. Camilla Wynne is an expert preserver, a pastry chef, and the author of the super popular cookbook Preservation Society Home Preserves, 100 Modern Recipes. I first heard of her years ago when she was giving canning classes in Montreal and selling her preserves at local markets. She was well known for her Caesar celery, canned celery slices that were born to die in bloody Caesars. Or at least that was the recipe that I kept hearing about all the time. In 2018, she shut down her production and moved to Toronto to work as a pastry chef, but all the while she kept doing canning workshops. Those workshops ended suddenly in March, like most things, because of COVID, and have recently started up again on Zoom. So as a fellow lover of all things pickled and preserved, I'm really looking forward to talking to Camilla about what she's making right now and what she's been planning for her business. Here's Camilla Wynne. Thanks so much for joining me today. I think we should start with a drink because I got to know you through your boozy preserves, so I figured that you'd have something delicious today.
Well, tonight I'm having one of my favorite kind of highballs from Rebecca Pepler's book Aperitif. It's a Suze tonic. So 1.5 ounces of Suze with an ounce of lemon juice, and I use bergamot bitters and tonic.
I went with something sort of similar and a nice kind of highball too with koki and water kefir that I started making myself recently. I'm not great at it. I'm still working on it. It's a little too sweet. The fermentation didn't really complete. So then I added a little bit of this really bitter white vermouth to add that bitterness.
I love koki Americano.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Santé. So you used to live in Montreal, and I was really happy that you were here. I had a ton of friends that took your classes. I never did. I never, at that point, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on classes, but I always aspired to taking your classes, which were not overly expensive. I was just a very poor student. But now you're in Ontario. Where exactly are you?
I live in Toronto now.
Okay.
So I went to Hamilton when I moved from Montreal, but been in Toronto for a year and a bit.
Okay. Were you working as a pastry chef there?
When I moved, I was the pastry chef for the Drake for all their properties, but I didn't last long there. It was a bad fit.
You didn't want to go to the Drake Devonshire? They must be getting swamped right now.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
And I think everybody and their dog has gone to Prince Edward County, like actually, and their dog.
Yes.
So you're still in Toronto now, or are you outside of Toronto? You're in Toronto.
In Toronto, yeah.
Okay. And you're started to give cooking classes again, right?
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in like a little area between finishing my book and starting a new job. And so I had stacked my schedule with workshops, and they all got canceled. It was really because that was my sole source of income. And then every time someone would tell me to teach online in that first month or two, I'd just like immediately start crying. I just couldn't see how it could be the same. I'm not like a big computer guy. I didn't want to, but I taught my first one last week, and it ended up being so fun. And that gave me the confidence to launch my own.
So I had a lot of questions about that. I used to teach some cooking classes myself, and I wondered how you would do it without actually being able to give your guests a finished product at the end of the session. So how has that been for you? You're not going around dropping off ingredients to everybody, or how does it work?
No. Well, the one I've done so far, I mean, technically it's more like a live demo where they can ask questions. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, with the kind of classes I teach, my style is really, I want people to understand why they follow the procedures they do in canning, and really getting that like underlying knowledge so that they leave and it doesn't matter a particular recipe or something, but they can come back to it and see like, oh, this should be safe, this isn't, this is why we do this, I can cut these steps because I understand this concept. So I think that works well for my style to adapt it online. even though it's obviously fun for people to leave with their jars of stuff and everything. It depends on what kind of person it is. If someone really wants to come to really take away some knowledge to use later on, or there's the kind of person who, just wants to come with some friends and
have a good time and
so
eat some celery.
I think people still had fun, but definitely the online version is more for really learning.
Okay. And what preserves did you demo?
So it's high peach season in Ontario right now. So
yes.
yeah. So we did 2 recipes from my first book actually, peach bourbon honey jam and peach melba. So peach halves and like a raspberry vanilla syrup.
Okay, so I kind of Instagram stalked you in preparation for this, and you talked about roasting your peaches to more easily remove the skins and I guess the pits too, because it's such a labor-intensive process otherwise. How groundbreaking was that for you? Was that like a big boom moment?
Well, probably, I mean, I got the impression from some of the comments, I'm not the first person to think of it, but for
you are
me,
clearly the original.
It blew my mind. Like, all of a sudden, it's so easy to can peaches. I did like a full sheet pan of them this morning and made 6 jars, and it was like 0 work at all. So it was revolutionary for me.
Clingstone or freestone peaches?
Oh, always freestone. Otherwise, we end up cutting them off the pit, Those are just for eating.
Yeah. And how much did a cherry pitter change your life? I assume you own a cherry pitter.
You know what? Maybe mine doesn't work very well, but usually I get it out and I start trying to use it, and then I ended up just doing it all with my hands.
Oh gosh, no. You need a better cherry pitter in your line of work. It's a write-off as a freelancer, so definitely go for it.
It's true.
I understand though, because that changed my life one year when I made maraschino cherries. So I have a million other questions about canning and about your book and about your recipes and all these things, but maybe we should play a little lightning round to break the ice here, because we haven't met in person before, even though I've been a fangirl for years, which is probably creepy for you. I'm not a creepy person, don't worry. You're like, anyone who drinks Cokie is good by me.
Yeah.
Good. So how about we talk about preserves? What was the last preserve you made?
I just 1 hour ago jarred up some grape jam from grapes from my friend's tree. Vine. I guess it's a vine, not a tree.
What kind of grapes were they?
I don't know. Kind of like Concords.
Okay.
It was very labor intensive, just removing all the skins and then.
Oh my gosh, you have to. Yeah. Oh wow. Wait, jam or jelly? What did you do?
Jam.
And you had to remove all the skins? I guess.
Yeah. So you can simmer the insides and then strain them so you get out all the seeds. Okay.
And the skins don't just break when you simmer it. That's not worth.
Well, then you put the pulp back together with the skins and the sugar.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's labor intensive.
Okay, there's a reason I don't make a lot of jelly, and it's because of that. So when you call that jam and you have all that series, I think raspberry, when I made raspberry jam the first time, because you do nothing to the berries, that changed my jam making experience.
Yeah, this is definitely on the higher end of the labor intensive preserves.
So that's like canning 201 or 301.
Pretty much.
Not 101. Okay, as you see, I'm the worst person for a lightning round. That was question number 1. What was your favorite preserve during COVID?
I used a lot of forced rhubarb that we grow in Ontario, and the best jam I made up, I think, was a rhubarb blood orange Aperol jam.
Oh gosh. Wait, okay. Rhubarb plus the blood orange plus the Aperol. So you have the bitterness, and then you have the orange of the Aperol and the blood orange going together with the sour from the rhubarb. Ooh, yeah. Well, that sounds a little bit like the Cokie with the rhubarb and the bitter bark in there. I love it. Okay. And what's your favorite spice then?
I could never pick, but the one I put in preserves most often is star anise. I like licorice.
Yeah. And herb?
Ooh. Yikes. Dill?
That's a good one. Not maybe with the rhubarb, but with with pickles. Sorry, I'm still thinking about rhubarb here. Yeah, dill, of course, for dill pickles, for carrots, for what else?
Oh, sauerkraut. I've been putting fresh dill in
Oh,
my sauerkraut.
yeah. I just did that and it was not very pungent. Do you have any idea why it didn't kind of come through?
Maybe you didn't put enough.
That is probably the answer. Tarragon is really good, actually, I found in sauerkraut.
Ooh, I
It
can do
becomes
that.
very punchy.
Ooh,
Favorite fruit?
all the fruit.
Yeah, it's like asking favorite child, I realize. Right now, probably
Really
peaches.
impossible.
Yeah. Um, weirdest pickle you've ever made?
Oh, we used to. So the Caesar celery was very popular. So we had the bottoms of a whole bunch of celery.
Uh huh.
And my assistant one day decided we should try and do, recuperate that food waste. And we cut them up and pickled them with like pastis and fennel seeds and called it faux fennel. Wasn't that good, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I A for trying, you
Yeah.
know. You want to preserve as much as you can. I guess that's the whole idea. Sweet or spicy?
Both, but sweet if there was no choice.
Yeah. Okay. What was the first preserve you ever made?
Uh, it was a Seville orange marmalade from a can of prepared oranges.
That exists? A
They're
can of
already like
prepared.
sliced and boiled, so you just add sugar.
Where did you get that?
At Gourmet Laurier.
Oh, that's a good store. Yeah. And it was meant just to be put together like that? Like,
Mhm.
why does one buy those those
Well,
oranges?
I guess that's a great question. If you want to make your own marmalade and Sevilles aren't in season,
Yeah.
or you have arthritic hands and you can't slice the oranges,
It's,
that's much
it's just like if Sevilles aren't in season and you're craving marmalade, why not just buy the marmalade?
because you make the best one. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe you make the best one. I don't make the best one.
Maybe.
What's the biggest inspiration for your canning?
Uh, what isn't? I think would be a better question. I get ideas from everything, dreams,
Really?
things I've been cooking or eating or travel or memories, cocktails, everything.
Really? Memories and dreams? Do you have examples of those?
Yeah, Bleu Matin, which was one of our most popular jams, which was coffee and blueberry. Got a dream about it.
Really?
Yeah, uh, strange but true. And then I woke up and I was like, ooh. Or I get a lot of ideas when I'm like, I know you're not supposed to think during shavasana and yoga, but that's where I get a lot of my best, like baking and preserving ideas.
Hmm.
Because your mind's just kind of drifting.
That makes sense. And I think that has proven very fruitful for you. As much as I want you to enjoy Shavasana and just actually relax, I really hope that you have non restful, drifting thoughts.
I
That
mean, I think I don't know. I think technically, I think that is relaxing, or like it's a positive thing anyway. No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying it. Canned or fermented cucumbers, which do you prefer?
Ooh, both, but canned, I guess, if I had to choose.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. It's just what I grew up on, I guess, uh, and it's what I make the most of.
Hmm. Um, I I never liked cucumbers growing up, and I then fell in love with them when I started canning them, but it took me a little bit longer to like the fermented ones because they can be
Oh,
so
interesting.
funky depending on how
Yeah.
long you leave them. But other ferments, no problem. There's just something about the cucumbers. I'm not
Huh,
sure.
interesting.
First canning cookbook that you ever owned?
I think it was Mes Confitures by Christine Farber.
Oh, when did that come out?
Oh, it must have been a long time ago, I guess. Maybe the late 90s, I'm guessing.
Do you have a go-to canning book right now that you love?
No, now I mean, I've been doing it so long, I mostly just make everything up out of my head. Today, actually, because I'd never made grape jam, was the first time in a long time that I came upstairs and looked through everything. Although I did just buy a new one that's awesome. Pam the Jam by Pam Corbin, who wrote the River Cottage Preserves book.
Oh, wow. Okay, what's in there? Like, what did you get excited about in that?
I just like her style, and she's a great writer. What have I made in there so far? Sherried shallots, pickled shallots, like a celery pickle. She said it was good with mackerel, and I was like, I want to eat that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, she has a. I mean, I definitely learned to preserve from cooking out of her first book, but I've developed my own style. But I really have a soft spot for hers.
Mm. Okay. And so you have been writing another book now. Like your first one was wildly popular, I think. I don't.
Not true, but
Well, you got so much press here in Montreal. Like when I think of a preserving book, I think of your book as a local book, and I think a lot of people, at least here, do. But maybe it's because we're all in Montreal. But how have sales of that increased because of COVID? Like so many people have been home, they want to make jam.
it's kind of hard for me to know because I don't sell them directly anymore. And I'm with a new publishing company now, so I don't hear a lot about what is happening with the old book. But hopefully, people have written to me and told me they just got my book, so that's good.
Okay. Do you still get royalties from that? I hope.
They trickle in, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope lots more people go and do that. And now you have a new book coming out. What's it called?
Jam bake.
I presume it's all preserves, right?
Yeah, so it's all, well, actually, it's not all preserves. It's all preserved recipes, and then each one of those has two pastry recipes that incorporate them.
Okay.
So it's for the person who either like the diehard canner who ends up with so much stuff that they don't know what to do with it all, or else for the baker who, well, I mean, you can also use store-bought preserves with any of the pastry recipes. So it kind of goes both ways, and then it hits that sweet spot in the Venn diagram of preservers who are also bakers, and vice versa.
Can you give some examples? Can we have a sneak peek of what some of the recipes are?
Oh, well, there's a few of the recipes that Preservation Society used to make that people were pretty wild about, like fall sweater. That was one of our
Right.
most popular ones. The recipe for that is in there.
That's the one with, does that have bourbon in it?
No, it's thinly sliced apple and pear in a pumpkin beer caramel.
Right, the Saint-Amboise, right? And you still specifically call for the Saint-Amboise, or can it be any
No,
pumpkin
because it's going to
ale?
be all over the
Right.
North America.
All
Any
right.
pumpkin beer, that is the one I would use.
Yes, us Montrealers will support local. So there's that one. What are some of the pastry options in the book?
Oh, geez. There's so many different ones. There's simple stuff like pistachio blondies with a summer pudding jam swirled through them, or a really good
Oof.
ginger cookie sandwiched with raspberry lambic jam. And then there's more complicated stuff like Black Forest whippets and like eau de vie meringue rolls and stuff like that. So it runs the gamut, I would say.
Oof. I noticed you're a big pavlova fan
Yeah,
on Instagram.
there's some of those in there also.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, and all the kind of um, the meringues, like all those egg white, fluffy, sweet sugar desserts. Oh, that's just so exciting. What have you been some of your favorite preserves of the summer while you've been presumably recipe testing, or were you already done recipe
Oh
testing a
no,
while ago?
I handed in the manuscript the 31st of January. So
Oh, so it was all pre-COVID. This was all already done.
yeah, I really slipped in. Like I just slid into home plate right in time because in February I went to New York City to uh, have my friend do the illustrations. So New York quickly became the epicenter after that. And then after I was in Montreal doing the photos with Mikhail Bandasak. So
Ah, okay. Yeah, he's
if it had
great.
happened like a month later, everything would have been, uh, you know, put on the back burner. So we're really lucky we got all that stuff done before.
And did the timeline get changed because of COVID in terms of the launch or the marketing or anything?
No, because we were lucky enough to, get all the photos and illustrations done. We're still on schedule for the spring release. So that was good.
Okay. When was Mikhail doing the photos again?
We did that mid to late February, just in the middle of a big snowstorm, basically.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was asking because I worked with him, I think, shortly after that.
Oh, amazing.
And we got caught with COVID stuff, and our project got
Oh,
put on the back burner, unfortunately. But he was a trooper. He's a great guy. If anyone needs a great
so
food
talented.
photographer, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when does the book come out?
Spring 2021.
Oh, we have to
So there's
wait
still
so
a long
long.
time. Yeah, I know. I was just talking to another friend who's writing a book today who's also a musician, and we were like, man, records come out so much faster. These books are taking forever.
And everybody's got a home recording studio now during COVID, so everybody can make their own record the same way people can make their own jam from your first book, for now, at least. And you do still have a couple of recipes online at the Preservation Society website. The Negroni jam looks amazing.
There's a strawberry rhubarb with honey online, a strawberry salad jam. And then I just started a new column for the next few weeks. So every 2 weeks, a new recipe will come out with a regional Ontario newspaper.
Yeah, I'll put up a link to that. I did find your first column, I think, for that.
Okay.
It's cool that they have a whole series. There's a couple writers writing in that series of preservation. And it seems like it comes at a time when a lot of newspapers are cutting rather than adding, but that's such an essential service that people want to read that right now. So how did you get connected with that?
I'm never too sure. I'm not someone who's very good at pitching or anything like that. I just wait till people find me. So, probably through my teaching, someone heard that I was the guy for preserving and asked me if I'd be interested.
Okay. So I'm curious because I know people have different kind of preserving styles. I know you use a lot of honey and different flavors, and because of your pastry background, maybe you're thinking about recipes a little bit differently, but would you say you have a style? And if so, what is that?
Oh, that's a good question. It's always a difficult thing to articulate, I think. And I think when it's you, unless you're asked to articulate it, you don't really think about it. Definitely lower sugar, no pectin, no added pectin usually. And yeah, I have an interest in alternative sweeteners, in like playing with flavor through like spice and herb and just combining different fruits. I just read a new preserving cookbook that came out, a jam book that had almost like everything was just a straight up one fruit scenario. And for me, that's usually not what I'm interested in seeing how things play off one another, I want to invent new combinations. So
do you work with what you have, or do you think I want to play with that more so?
Oh, I mean, I usually work with what I have because I can't really go out without buying like an obscene amount of fruit.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, so yeah, usually and people, give me big bags of grapes and stuff like that. So I'm lucky.
Those are the best friends. Do you make a lot of mostarda? A lot of people don't know that preserves so much.
Someone actually just called me from like the Laurentians the other day asking where she could find it because she loves it, the one we used to make, and I had to break it to her. We hadn't been making it for 2 years. Actually haven't made it for like since then. But I'm very lucky. I have a very talented friend named Merrick who makes a really amazing pear mostarda, which she gave us.
Where is she working right now?
Nowhere, I don't think. She's hanging out in Vermont for the summer.
Okay, because she was at the SAT doing the savory stuff there, and then what happened to her? I'm not even sure, but
we actually worked together for a while at Detour Cafe in Hamilton. So that was a very nice reunion for us.
She's fabulous. I've been a fan of her career for a number of years too.
Oh yeah, she's one of the best cooks I know.
There was one other preserving kind of step, I guess, that most people do when they soften the lids, but I've just recently read that you don't have to do that. What's your opinion on that?
So they released a press release in, I think it was 2013, the Jardin Corporation that makes Ball and Bernardin jars, saying you didn't have to soften or like simmer the lids anymore. And so I'm very lazy. I don't want to do any extra work. So the second they said that, I stopped doing it, and I haven't done it in the past 7 years.
And you
So
haven't
I
had
think
any
that,
trouble? There haven't had any broken glasses or?
well, if anything, I would say things seal better
Yeah.
now. Um, yeah, I rarely have an unsealed jar. So,
Okay. Yeah,
I mean,
because sorry, go
well, if
ahead.
you're boiling your jars, if you think about it, there's not really a point in softening the seal. That's going to happen once the filled jar is in the water bath anyway, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't affect it doesn't have to be wetted to soften.
No.
That press release was really interesting. I couldn't believe that I hadn't read it before and I'd been wasting all my time softening these lids for ages.
Yeah, the news is not disseminating very quickly. Almost no one knows that whenever I'm in class. So
Yeah. Funny thing about canning. Yeah, it's kind of an old school thing, so maybe not so revolutionary for a lot of people, but you do have a great opportunity with your classes to kind of break those incorrect traditions, I guess.
oh yeah, there's tons of stuff that like one would traditionally do that really aren't necessary. I really try and streamline the process. So because everyone thinks it's also like an all day affair, all of these things, and I really want to be like, no, you can get home and just take half an hour and make 4 jars of pickles or a batch of jam, and then do yoga and then have dinner. Like it's really, you can fit it into your life easily.
What are some of the other steps that can be streamlined?
Well, for instance, there's no need to like pre-sterilize jars, as long as you're boiling the filled jars in the water bath for 10 minutes afterwards. So you can just take brand new clean jars. You don't have to heat them up or anything like that. And then when I make jam, I don't boil the filled jars at all because jam gets so hot. You can just pour it in the jars, seal it tightly, and invert it to sterilize the lid for 1 to 2 minutes.
Do you feel that makes a more fruit forward jam because you're not boiling it again after? Is there a taste difference?
I wouldn't say so. The like 5 minutes that they get you to boil jams for in a water bath is like mostly symbolic, honestly. Just like making sure it's definitely going to be okay kind of scenario.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it doesn't make a bunch of difference at all.
Have you ever had a jam go off?
A few times I have had the problem using like one piece lids where it can be quite hard to tell if they're properly sealed, and then someone can drop it and it dents and opens. And so maybe once or twice I opened a jar that hadn't been properly sealed and it had a little bit of mold on the top, but not otherwise.
And you still always need new lids no
Yes.
matter what process you're doing. Okay. Yeah, I've always boiled afterwards, water bath usually. So that's good to know that I don't necessarily need to do that because I've been so scared to not.
Well, there's a long like manifesto about it in my new book. So
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. I love that you're just making people's lives easier and introducing them to canning and, taking them to the next step in canning. You also work with a lot of local fruit and vegetable, like you said, seasonal. Can't go through a farmer's market without buying everything. Completely understand that. Hence my tomatillo salsa obsession. Actually, can I just show off really quickly and turn towards my canning cupboard? It's
nice.
My baby. I really love it. That's what I've been working on. Yeah. That's what I've been working on all of COVID. Working really hard there. So I completely understand that you just want to use up everything that's there. So you probably have pretty good connections then with local producers. What's been happening with their supply, with their demand, with workers, with crop harvest that you've heard?
Well, the truth is, since I'm new to town, I'm just starting to figure out who my new suppliers are. There has been a cool thing that's happened, probably in Montreal, probably across the country, really, where like a lot of vendors who used to supply directly to restaurants are now starting to deliver to to residences and stuff like that, since obviously they're not selling as much to restaurants anymore. So that's a really cool opportunity because often there are a lot of interesting fruits and vegetables that just go straight to restaurants that we never see.
Are there any in particular that you've been taking advantage of?
Well, I mostly actually am a little bit obsessed with a company called Muddy Crops. That has little farmers market stands around Toronto, but they also have been doing home delivery, I think probably since the pandemic started. And I have managed to find things I haven't found anywhere else, like tayberries, organic tomatillos. I can't find tomatillos in Toronto to save my life, so I found those there. Yeah, like a lot of organic and biodynamic stuff, so that's really cool.
That is very cool. And so are there particular farmers that you have been in communication with, or is it mostly via the markets or via these drop-offs?
Yeah, that's usually how. Although I do have some good friends who run a farm as well that do a couple of the markets in Toronto.
Okay. How have they been doing with, have they managed to harvest everything on their own and plant on their own? Maybe they don't have foreign workers coming in.
Yeah, no, they just have like a pretty small team. So they wouldn't, they just have a few like friends and people from the area that work for them. I mean, I think it was a big, like, quick pivot they had to make, and it's a lot of extra hard work to build a whole online store platform and stuff like that. I think that was pretty rough, but ultimately they did a really good job of it. And they were saying to me that actually, in a sense, when everything was pre-ordered, like, you know, they're not over harvesting or like under harvesting, so it's nice to know exactly what you're gonna be making. I've heard that from friends with bakeries too, who started doing deliveries and stuff. You know, you just make as much as people have already paid for, essentially.
Do you think this is a better system? Should we keep this?
I don't know. I mean, in that sense, it's interesting. But I would be lying if I said that like I didn't miss the pleasure of like walking through the market and just seeing something and being like, oh this, oh that, like why not? And I don't know. It's just maybe it doesn't make sense, but it is really nice just to see the displays and the abundance and stuff like that. So I'm not sure.
I used to live in Toronto, and my favorite thing to do was just to go from farmers market to farmers market. So I'm wondering, what are your favorite markets, and what are they like this year compared to other years?
Well, I love it. Last summer, like I was really excited that there was a market almost every day that I could go to. Like there's Sororian Market right by my house, which I loved. But this year, my favorite producer isn't there, who does like organic berries and stuff like that, because she's a little bit older and so is her husband. So they're higher risk. So they decided not to do it. So without her there, I haven't really felt the draw. And then Trinity Bellwoods, I also love, would always go to because my friends are there and I have shares with them. This year, once they did open, you know, it's like a certain amount of people at a time. So you're lining up, you're having your hands sterilized, you line up at all the booths. Like, it's definitely not the same social experience, but I've still been going because it's great to just be able to buy directly from the vendors. Dufferin Grove, I would usually go to as well. So they pivoted fully to online. And
oh, really?
I did it once, but to be totally honest, like I'm so picky. I don't like to have someone else pick my produce for me. I really don't like it. I ordered pickling cucumbers and then I got them and they were like, I don't know, like 2 inches diameter. And I was like, nope. I never would have bought these if I'd known. So
no, you're gonna fit 1.5 of those in a jar, and you have to cut. It's ridiculous.
Either way, what I really miss the Gentilly market. It's not the same culture here where people buy like huge bushels of stuff and transform things. You know, it's you get pickling cucumbers, but it's like a pint of them, and you're like, what
are you gonna do with that?
Do with this? So, or like, there's no flats of strawberry. Like, it's not the same ethos at all. It's like just for people who live in condos, it seems like. So I miss that a lot.
Well, there's a huge Italian community though there. Where do they get their tomatoes? Because I know they're making tomatoes.
I know. I gotta find out.
Okay, yeah, definitely some research. But the Jean Talon, so it's been really interesting transition at Jean Talon. When was the last time you were here?
I actually was working in Montreal a couple weeks ago, and so I went by.
You did go, yeah. What did you think of the whole system now, where you're still cleaning your hands when you go in there, but it's all masks and your social distancing?
Been great.
Yeah. Very different than Toronto.
I mean, no, that's essentially. Well, there was no one. Is there someone who counts how many people are in at a time?
Initially there was, and now they've opened it up and they don't.
Yeah, it seemed pretty busy when I was in there.
Yeah.
So in Toronto, they're still limiting the number of people and stuff like that, which I think is smart.
Yeah. Well, and I guess because Jean Talon is the open air market right now, when it wasn't open air yet, they had to be much more careful about how many people were going inside.
They do that even with the open air markets here, though.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Jean Talon, I remember when the masks came in, that was a big transition. And then I remembered when there were more than 2 entrances, that was a big transition. Yeah. Now you can just walk in again and it feels almost normal, like almost.
Oh, except Beery. Beery is like.
Yeah. Well, they're the only ones. Yeah. You have to say what you want and they go get it and they bring it to you. Yeah. You can't wander through there.
That's like one of my favorite stands to wander through. So it's that. But.
Although I did get a great yellow tomato plant from them that just gave me a tomato. It was like about the size of my fist, and that was delicious. Unfortunately, the squirrel got a bite of it first, but just cut that out. It's all fine. There are things you don't miss about Montreal, I bet. Like the squirrels.
We have squirrels here, mark my words.
Oh, yeah?
My tomatoes, for sure.
So one more preserve related question, specifically booze related preserve. You got really well known for your Caesar preserve here. Maybe you wouldn't use really, but I would use really. I would say you got really well known for it. What is your personal favorite booze related preserve?
Ooh, man, there have been so many. It's true.
Happy hours.
Maybe I really loved Bon Matin, the Seville orange marmalade with whiskey and coffee.
Ooh.
That we used to do. And the recipe for that is in my new book also.
Okay, that's exciting. Are there other fun booze-related ones in the new book that we can plug?
The cherry Negroni's in there. Probably lots of others. Oh, the raspberry jam with like a fully reduced bottle of raspberry lambic beer in it is one of my favorite ones. The fall sweater, probably lots more than that too.
Okay. Basically, what I want to ask is for your preserving column coming up. What is coming up next?
Let's see. So next week it's the Concord grape syrup, and then I think we go to quince. So I have a quince scrap jelly recipe I'm really excited to share, and we grow quince here in Ontario, so that's exciting. A fall harvest pickle I came up with last year that's really great. Cranberry chutney in time for Thanksgiving. And then I think I'm going to finish it off with the Christmas clementine marmalade.
When was the first time you had quince?
Definitely when I worked at Les Chèvres, I guess in the early 2000s, Patrick Desmas's restaurant.
What did you think of it the first time you had it? Like in terms of the flavor, how would you describe it?
Oh, I mean, it's kind of like a cross between an apple and a pear, but more floral almost. I loved it. And the color is so beautiful. And they just smell so amazing on their own. But I called my dad, who is a cook, to tell him, I discovered this fruit. It's so delicious. But I forgot to tell him you need to cook it. So he called me back and he was like, you know what, I tried that and it's not good. Like really astringent. Like, oh, my bad.
So you need to cook it like 40 minutes, right? Or long time?
You need to like really stew it for sure.
The first time I heard of it was actually basically that's the story of a chapter of a book called The Book of Salt by Monique Truong. It's not the Book of Salt that everybody knows. It's a different one about a Vietnamese chef in Paris.
Oh, cool.
And chapter 6, I believe, because it's my favorite chapter in any book in the world, is all about quince. And it's about this chef who doesn't speak the French language at the time, explaining what love is. And the entire chapter is him doing that in a metaphor of quince.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It's amazing. And it's such a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. And it will make you fall in love with quince and in love with that author for sure.
Already done, but I don't mind falling in love all over again.
I think that's a good idea for any preserve with quince. We should name a preserve, something about that.
Yeah.
So where do you recommend people learn to can? Obviously your Zoom classes, but what are the best and safest options?
I mean, I initially was self-taught, so I just read every single book I could get my hands on, but that can be confusing sometimes because they follow different methods like in England and France than we do in North America.
And if you get an old book, they're saying wax tops and
100%. Yeah, don't get something modern. 100%. That is key because they didn't even have the same ingredients with the same acidity and stuff like that.
So your vinegar might not be 5%. It might be whatever.
Yeah, so definitely published like after 94 is important. And then yeah, it depends what kind of learner you are. Get some good books or, come to a class. Yeah, I think those are the best things to do. It's wonderful learning heirloom recipes and stuff like that. But if you want to be 100% sure you're doing things properly and safely, it's important to get some up-to-date information.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say go buy like 2 giant barrels of tomatoes to make your own sauce without knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, because I've had a lot of people come to class after they had some real disasters happen.
Oh, so, that just
like
breaks
all
my
the
heart.
jars exploding and stuff like that.
Oh no! Did they put cold jars into the hot water or?
Oh well, that happens all the time, but no, not heat processing filled jars of tomatoes, and then they ferment and the pressure gosh, and you have like a tomato geyser.
Yeah, because that is not a jam. You cannot just turn that over or just leave it. Tomatoes take a long time. Are you a pressure canner too?
I love pressure canning, but I don't have one right now, so I'm in the market.
Okay.
I do love it.
Yeah, I think that kind of changed my life. The idea that you can just preserve anything in water, basically, is pretty cool. Yeah, like I'm curious to see because I did some carrots this year as a trial with mint, and I just did them in water. But I love the salt and I love the vinegar of a pickled carrot. So I'm like, am I even gonna like these? I think my body might because of the less salt, but.
Yeah, and it's just it's convenient. Like it's like an investment in your future. One night when you get home and you're too tired, you can just put those in a pan with a little bit of butter, and all of a sudden you have a side dish. Or empty everything into a pot of soup, and you know what's in it, and you know where it came from. And
there's no junk.
Really special if you have the time to be able to do that.
Did you have a big supply of anything that you just ate your way through during COVID? Did you have a comfort pickle?
I was a little low, and I also sold a whole bunch of stuff for my Bakers Against Racism bake sale also. So a lot of my jam went there, but I was really happy. We got stuck in the house for like 8 days waiting for test results at the very beginning. And so we were like pretty low on groceries, and I was so happy I'd done things like canned grapefruits and canned apricots and stuff. So we had fruit. So that felt like I'd really made the right move.
That's a real big win. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had the same feeling with my tomatillo salsa. I think I had about 4 jars that I was just saving, and they were so precious for me. And every time I opened one of those and had a little snack before dinner, I was just like, I did something right with my life. It is all okay. So I
powered through our canned salsa that we've made. for sure.
Yeah, that's why I bought the tomatillos this year. And actually, I had a moment at the market where I was like, I could buy so many more carrots for this amount of money. But I asked the woman, I'm like, are the tomatillos? Is the price going to go down? Because it was like $30 for I don't know how many pounds, but it was expensive. And I was like, I could supply all of Point St. Charles with pickled carrots for that amount of money. But no. So I went for it, and I'm just so happy because that brought me so much joy during COVID, and I needed a larger supply for, life, but
Yes.
potentially
Case
more.
of lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have anything that you made during COVID that you're saving like that?
Well, I really upped my salsa production this
Oh yeah.
year for sure.
Do you have a favorite salsa? Like what's your go-to?
Yeah, one that I created last year. So eventually I'll publish the recipe for that one. It's got like dried ancho chilies and guajillo chilies and fresh poblanos and serranos, and really, really good.
Ooh, that sounds good.
And then we always do a peach chipotle salsa and a salsa verde also.
And chipotle with the canned chipotle and adobo sauce chipotle, or okay, so good. That sounds amazing. I love that sweet and spicy combination. Do you do a lot of fermenting too?
A little bit, yeah. I just taught my dad to make sauerkraut when I was home, so that was fun.
Cool.
I wish I did it more, but I'm definitely always making sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Mostly I would teach in Montreal a lot of classes with my friend Blake McKay, where he taught fermentation, and then I'd always take home like the leftovers of this sauerkraut and kimchi. So I never had to ferment because I just had so much of it around. But now that we're not doing that, I've got to do it myself.
Yeah. Do you have a kimchi a recipe, a favorite one? Do you do like shrimp paste? Do you do fruit in there?
Blake's recipe is like the best one I've ever tasted for a homemade. He grates an apple pear into it for the fruit and uses like kind of a rice gruel to get the fermentation really kick-started. It's delicious.
Yeah, that carbohydrate will give it a nice little kick. It's true. I like that he does it with rice. Some people do it with flour, and then if you can't give it to gluten-free people.
Rice is nicer.
Yeah, great.
Rice is nice.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you one question about your Patreon account, or how does that work exactly?
But I'm considering starting one. It's an interesting thing. I don't subscribe to anyone's Patreon. Not currently in the position to do so. But when you're someone who like produces a lot of content and recipes and stuff like that, I do a lot of that on Instagram. And when you're struggling financially, it's kind of like, ugh, like, and people ask me questions all the time. So I'm sharing my skills a lot for free. Yeah. So
it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort.
And I'm also, unfortunately, because I'm so busy, I'm not that motivated to work on posting things on my blog and stuff because it's not in any way like financially, it doesn't generate anything financially. So I like the idea of the Patreon giving me the impetus and like a deadline to be creating recipes and, writing essays and stuff for people. So hopefully I will get that going soon.
For anyone who doesn't know, that's kind of a subscription service where you can offer to pay someone for their skills, is it like for writing the recipes. And is it a mailing list, or how does it work exactly?
I'm not totally sure. I think you just have access to like downloading the content and stuff, but
and maybe you can and maybe you can decide, because I know that you can do it with all kinds of backgrounds. It's not just for cooks, and it's not just for writers, and it's not just for whatever.
Yeah, there are musicians, and there's also podcasts, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, anything where you're essentially being a patron to a good or service. I guess a service. So I just want to ask you one more fun food question, and then if there's anything else you want to say, please say it. But is there anything that when you just think of this particular preserve, you think summer?
Good question. There are ones that I just can't go a summer without making. Like I don't know what I would do if I didn't make apricot jam and blackcurrant jam. Those are my two, like, no compromise kind of preserves. Otherwise, I'm always trying new stuff and everything, but those are the ones that have to happen.
I so wish that I could open a lot of preserves right here with you. I wish you could be here so that we could taste a lot of things together.
Yeah.
That would be so fun, and in another year or lifetime.
No problem.
Yeah, post-pandemic for sure. Next time you're in Montreal, we can go to Jean Talon. I'll bring all my open preserves, and you can taste your way through. So is there anything else you want to mention about your upcoming cookbook or about classes, websites that we can plug?
You can always find me and my work at preservationsociety.ca, and that has all the info about my online classes. So those start on Sunday. It's called the Preservation Society Guide to Intelligent Preserving. So, as I said, the idea is that you're going to learn why we do the things we do. And I don't want to teach you to just follow a recipe. I want to teach you to be able to, be creative in canning, but to do it safely. But to really make things yours and to make things to your taste.
Great. Perfect. And if are you selling your preserves still?
No, but I did just release a collaboration with a company called Acid League. We put out 4 different jams, 3 jams and a marmalade with some of their cool vinegars in them.
Are they still available?
Yeah. So those are at acidleague.com.
Perfect. I'll put up the link to that then too. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful workshop on Sunday. And I hope your classes go really well and you make so many more delicious things this year.
Thank you so much. And I'm so impressed with your pantry.
I really just wanted to show it off. It was very obnoxious of me, but thank you.
No, it was awesome. Lovely.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Don't you just want to see Camilla's preserving cupboard? I really want to see Camilla's preserving cupboard because she was so nice about me showing off mine, but I know hers is going to be 10 million times better and definitely cooler in terms of what she's preserving. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Sanka Said podcast. If you missed the first episodes of this podcast, I think there were 17 or 18 already, you can subscribe to the audio version on Google Podcasts or Pocket Casts, follow it on Spotify, and find it on Stitcher. You can find the video versions on Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and you can stream any episode on my blog, multiculturiosity.com, which you can also like on Facebook for tons of recipes and stories about my canning and otherwise culinary adventures. Follow me on Instagram at Miss Watson, that's Miss Watson with 2 T's, and for links to everywhere that Camilla and I mentioned, plus her Zoom classes and all about her new cookbook, you can find them in the show notes wherever you got this podcast. Until next week, sip something delicious, bitter or sweet, wherever you are.